What's good, college football gamers? My name is Fend, and I'm going to get right to the point. We got a Dynasty Mode deep dive today. A 6-minute video paired with 17,000 words worth of a deep dive document over 85 pages. I read it for you, the whole thing. It took almost 2 hours, like an hour and 40 minutes. It's insane. That's all this video is me just reading the text of the deep dive we got today, beginning to end. If you're an audiobook guy like me, I hope this is helpful. Enjoy. Today's College Football 25 Dynasty Deep Dive. Legend has it that this is over 17,000 words and something like 80 pages of information. We're starting at 12:08 here. I think over-under's got to be at an hour. A channel point prediction would probably be hilarious. No pressure. But I'm going to lock in. Just let me help me out if you guys see any chat messages, people saying good morning. I'd appreciate it greatly. The College Football 25 Dynasty Deep Dive. Welcome back to the Campus Huddle, your home for news and information about EA Sports College Football 25. We know you've been awaiting more information about the fan favorite Dynasty Mode. Before we get started with the Campus Huddle, let's hear from Kirk Herbstreit for a video deep dive on Dynasty Mode. We saw that part already. Afterwards, you'll hear from Chad Walker, producer, and Ben Howmiller, principal game designer for College Football 25. Let's get started. Building Dynasty. We were in the early stages of designing Dynasty Mode. We talked with members of the community, college football experts and coaches, read hundreds of blog posts and tweets, and watched countless wish list videos. We knew how important Dynasty was to our community, and we heard loud and clear that our players wanted a deep experience that's representative of the current college football landscape, where roster management and talent acquisition are at the forefront of successful programs. With this in mind, we anchored our experience around 3 core pillars: build your coach, build your program, and deliver the world of college football. Build your coach. This encompasses the decisions you make on your coaching journey to the top of the college football world, whether that's starting as a coordinator at a small school and making a name for yourself before getting that first head coaching job, or starting as a head coach at your dream school. Every decision you make on your journey matters. Build your program. As the old saying goes, to win in college football, it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. Recruiting is the lifeblood of college football, and having a consistent winner means you need a roster that's built to reload rather than rebuild. That all starts at the high school recruiting trail, but in modern college football, roster retention and utilizing the transfer portal are instrumental in your ability to field a championship team and deliver the world of college football. A lot has changed in college football over the last year, let alone the last 11 years. From the new 12-team college football playoff to conference realignment, we set out to recreate the ever-changing world of college football within Dynasty and provide you with the tools to customize your experience. Underlying our 3 core pillars was one singular motto: satisfy the core community, because this is their game. A little photo of the Colorado State Rams against the Buffaloes there. Build your coach. Your journey to the top of the college football world starts with your coach. We wanted this to be meaningful and allow you to experience a coaching journey that no other sport can provide. We met with college football coaches and experts and started breaking down real-life coaches on the whiteboard. What was their identity? What made them great? What was their journey to get where they are today? What we found was that both current and former coaches broadly fit into 3 main categories. Some are incredible recruiters, others are motivators who maximize the potential of their players, and lastly, tacticians out-scheme their opponents with on-field X's and O's. There are also a number of coaches who are more of a hybrid between 2 categories. For example, coaches who are great at both recruiting and X's and O's. After breaking down hundreds of coaches, 2 things were loud and clear. No coach was great at everything, and there is no single path to being a great coach. What about the greatest coaches of all time? Even they weren't great at everything and needed their coordinators. Let's look back to 2013. Alabama's offense had fallen behind. The world of college football offenses was changing, and it was changing quickly. They had to pivot and change their entire philosophy, bringing in an offensive guru who transformed the Alabama offense and put the program on an entirely new trajectory. playing in 6 of the next 8 national championships while creating multiple first-round drafted quarterbacks. All of our research and discussions led us to build a coach experience centered around 3 goals. Just like the real world, no coach could be great at everything. A rock, paper, scissors relationship between coach types with no dominant progression path, and coordinators and how you build your staff matters. Coach progression. Progressing your coach starts with playing games. As you play, you'll complete coach goals that award XP. Once you earn enough XP, you'll level up the coach to a maximum of level 50 and be awarded coach points. Coach points can be used to upgrade your coach's abilities, and we'll see more on that later. 4 types of coach XP goal categories that can be single game, weekly, season, or career goals. Draft. Pro draft goals based on which round your player's drafted in. Like having someone go in the first round. Game, individual game goals that range from a single play, like a pick or a rushing touchdown, to a full game result, like beating your rival or a top 25 team or winning a national championship. Recruiting, determined by your success on the recruiting trail. Recruiting goals can be specific to a single prospect, like signing a 5-star, or, again, full season, like signing the best recruiting class in the country. And stats, weekly goals like ranked in the top 10 season stat goals. For example, 4,000 team pass yards, ranked top 5 in offensive yards, or career goals like winning 5 national championships. The number of times you completed a goal and your progress toward goal completion can be viewed in a Coach XP Goals screen, which they're showing just below here, which can be accessed via the Coach tab in the Dynasty Hub. We've also added 5 progression speed settings so you can modify how fast coaches progress in your dynasty. There's the page, what it's talking about there. Each time you complete a goal in-game, you'll receive a notification in the top left corner of the screen. The notification will describe the completed goal and XP reward. Little icons popping up in the HUD for the user there. After completing a game or advancing the week, you'll receive an XP summary screen showing your progression to the next level. And there that is. My man Taco, thank you so much, bro. On coach archetypes in EA Sports College Football 25, we're introducing a new archetype-based coach abilities system. You think of this similar to your traditional RPG classes. All your party members have a specific class or an archetype and a role. Ultimately, in order for your team to be successful, all the players in your party must do their job and work together. Our system is no different. All coaches will start with a base class or coach archetype, which can be thought of as your special ability in a traditional RPG. Just like our real-life coaches, the base archetypes fall into 3 categories: recruiting, motivation, think player development and program culture, and scheme, think on-field X's and O's. From your base archetype, you can progress in multiple ways. You can become an expert in a single category like recruiting, where you become an elite recruiter and excel on the recruiting trail. Alternatively, you can become a great hybrid coach who's strong in multiple areas. For example, a talent developer is great at both talent acquisition or recruiting and player development or motivation. This ultimate goal is to become a program builder or CEO atop the world of college football. Achieving an elite archetype like program builder or CEO is a combination of on-field success and ability progression. There's no single formula to reach these statuses. You'll be able to mix and match different ability combinations and progression paths, leading to strong customization. In total, there's 11 different archetypes, each with their own focuses and perks. Together, they form a rock, paper, scissors relationship where there's no dominant archetype. While there's no doubt that talent acquisition is the most important thing in college football, focusing solely on recruiting could leave you vulnerable in other areas. Remember that no coach can be great at everything. Every decision you make on your coaching journey matters. Once you purchase an ability, there's no going back, as you will not be able to respec your coach. How do I upgrade my archetype, and what does it do? Each archetype has a set of prerequisites and objectives that must be completed in order to purchase them. For example, in order to become an elite recruiter, you must spend 50 coach points in the recruiter archetype and sign 2 top 5 recruiting classes. Once these goals are complete, the archetype becomes available for purchase with coach points. When creating your coach, you'll select which base archetype you want to start with. The other 2 base archetypes will then be available for purchase with coach points without the need to meet any additional requirements. Purchasing an archetype with coach points unlocks a new set of abilities, as well as new opportunities in a coaching carousel, which we'll hear a little bit more about later. Additionally, each archetype has a perk when it's active. For example, Tactician has the Winner perk, which awards additional coach XP every time you win a game. Your active archetypes automatically determine if you own the Program Builder or CEO archetypes, they'll always be your active archetype, regardless of how many coach points you've spent in other archetypes. If you do not own these archetypes, your active archetype is the one that you've spent the most coach points in. All owned coach abilities are always on, regardless of which archetype is currently active. Your progress can be viewed in the Coach Abilities screen, which is accessible from the Coach tab of the Dynasty Hub. Within the screen, you'll be able to see all the available archetypes, their unlock requirements, and their perks, and your overall progression in each archetype. As you spend coach points in each archetype, the spider graph in the center of the screen will morph and change to show your coach's DNA. And an example of the Oregon coach DNA there. How do abilities work? Once you own an archetype, you can purchase the abilities within it using coach points. In College Football 25, we're introducing more than 50 coach abilities. Each ability can have up to 4 tiers, and every tier has a purchase cost associated with it. Every archetype, with the exception of Scheme Guru, Program Builder, and CEO, has their abilities broken down by position group. This increases the level of depth and specialization each coach has. No longer is a coach great at recruiting across the board. Now, coaches will specialize in specific position groups, making your staff composition that much more important. Are you a quarterback whisperer? Are you great in the trenches and committed to the no-fly zone? How does your staff complement you? In addition to position-based boosts, there's also going to be coach abilities with core gameplay effects so you can really cook. For example, the Scheme Guru archetype focuses on your gameplay style. If you're a coach who likes to play fast, you can upgrade fast tempo offense, providing you with the following boost. Battery pack at tier 1, offensive players fatigue slower and hurry up. Caught napping is a tier 2. Increased delay to defenders looking to the sideline at the snap. On their heels is a tier 3. Team composure boost for first downs gained while running hurry up. Or tipped your hand to tier 4, a chance to see the defender's coverage shell in hurry up. Oh. You can also make your team a well-oiled machine who doesn't work against themselves and is unfazed by rowdy home field crowds by upgrading the discipline or communication ability. On offense, this provides at tier 1 hater blockers. Gives you a slight reduction in crowd noise impact on the field. Tier 2 Teflon. Significant reduction of crowd noise impact on the road. Tier 3 Polished. Offensive players will commit slightly fewer penalties. And Tier 4 Clean Sheet Offense. Offensive players will commit significantly fewer penalties. Of course, balance is critically important here, so there are defensive counters to all offensive play style abilities. One more time. Of course, balance is critically important here, so there are defensive counters to all of the offensive playstyle abilities. Is your defense looking a little sus? Or are you tired of getting punched in the mouth by a physical ground and pound team? Upgrade your ground and pound defense to become a stout run defense and reduce the effects a physical offense continuously running the football. The Program Builder and CEO archetypes are different in the way that they're only available to head coaches. The abilities within them are diverse and range from roster management and program culture to home field advantage and recruiting pipeline boosts. That is uniquely for Program Builder and CEO archetypes that are only available to head coaches. Now, what about coordinators? Both coordinators and head coaches have the same set of abilities and archetypes available to them, leading to a natural progression from coordinator to head coach, and increased importance on staff management, where your coordinators either complement your strengths or shore up your deficiencies. Remember, no coach can be great at everything, so it's critical that your coordinators complement you. all of the abilities your coaching staff own stacked together, increasing the effect of an ability. Abilities owned by the head coach have the greatest impact. The impact of the coordinator-owned abilities depends on whether or not the ability is related to their side of the ball. For example, a defense coordinator having a quarterback icy veins ability, which boosts quarterback composure at the beginning of a game, will not have as much of an effect as though an offensive coordinator had it. Interesting. Your coordinators will automatically progress their archetypes and abilities. You'll not be able to control which abilities they purchase, nor will you be able to respec your coordinator's abilities. This adds even more importance to how you progress your coach and manage your staff in the coaching carousel. Essentially, you're a one and done. You can view the abilities on your coordinator's own from within their coach ability screen by tabbing left and right with LB, RB, or R1 and L1. Each coach will have a unique spider graph based on the abilities and archetypes that they own. Pressing R3 will overlay all three coaches' spider graphs so you can quickly see where your staff is deficient. Climbing the coaching ladder. Here's a picture of the all three coaches overlay. Pretty cool looking. On climbing the coaching ladder, your journey starts when you sign your first coach contract. When creating your dynasty, you'll have the option to select whether you want to be a head coach, an offensive coordinator, or a defensive coordinator. Coordinators have performance expectations just like a head coach. All roles will have full control of recruiting and be able to play both sides of the ball during gameplay. Sign here, please. Every time you start a new coaching job, you'll be asked to sign a contract with the school. The contract will have set contract length and performance expectations. Just like in real life, failure to meet those expectations will result in bad things happening. School expectations are determined by the school's current team prestige and program standing. The better the school, the higher the expectations. There's 4 types of contract expectations. Win X amount of games, win a conference championship, make the college football playoff, and win a national championship. Your job security will fluctuate throughout the season based on the results of your games and whether or not you're trending toward your contract expectations. The further you are away from meeting your expectations, the bigger your job security will be hit. If your job security gets too low, you'll end up on a hot seat. If it gets too hot, you'll get fired. You'll have to look for a new job in a carousel. Alternatively, meeting or exceeding your goal will result in increased job security. Of course, if you don't like the possibility of being fired, you can always turn off user coach firing in your dynasty settings. Job security is a function of your ability to meet your contract expectations. Every win and loss counts toward that expectation. With that being said, not all wins and losses are created equal. Beating a higher ranked team will have a larger impact than beating one of the generic FCS teams. Similarly, losing to a generic FCS team, not a good look. All coaches will have a coach prestige letter grade that ranges from A+ through F. Coach prestige is reflective of your ability to meet contract expectations, adjusted for the school and role that you have. For example, meeting expectation and winning 5 games at a small school will have a significantly smaller impact than winning the SEC championship at a traditional powerhouse school. At the end of the contract, your school will evaluate whether or not they want to extend your contract based on your performance. If you're offered an extension, you'll be notified that the school has decided to extend your contract, and it'll be automatically accepted. Don't worry. Automatic acceptance of contract extensions does not mean you're unable to change jobs. You can leave for a new job via the coaching carousel at any point in your contract, regardless of your current contract status. We auto-accept extensions to protect you from inadvertently changing jobs if you sim past a contract extension offer without interacting with it. Your current coach contract and job security status can be accessed from the Coach tab of the Dynasty Hub. When viewing a contract, you can see your current and past season job security, contract extension, and your school's season-by-season result for the last 20 years. Season-by-season results show the team's record, if they're a conference championship, and any bowl games that they won in that season. When signing your contract, you'll have the opportunity to look at the last 20 years and see the kind of program you're taking over. Of course, your program's history will continue to update over time as you play your dynasty. On the coaching carousel, following the 2021 to 2022 college football regular season, 2 high-profile schools in LSU and USC We're looking for new coaches. Both schools did what nobody saw coming and hired elite coaches from other high-profile schools. And suddenly, other high-profile jobs were unexpectedly available, and the coaching carousel was in full effect. In College Football 25, we set out to recreate the chaos that is a college football coaching carousel, along with the domino effect that it brings. Now, instead of happening over a single week, the carousel takes place over the course of 5 weeks, from the conference championship week to the end of the bowl season, just like the real world. Additionally, the carousel is now an asynchronous experience where each user can evaluate their offers without the need to wait on somebody else. That way, in your multi-user online dynasty, the entire carousel experience won't be held up because you're sitting around waiting for your friend to get on and evaluate the job offer only for them to tell you they're staying where they're at. So how does the coaching carousel work? The carousel kicks off during conference championship week. During this week, all contracts are processed and schools determine if they want to fire, extend, or let a coach's contract expire. If your school's decided to fire or extend you, you'll receive an action item notifying you of the news. If you're the head coach, you'll also be able to fire coordinators during this week, which we'll also hear a little bit more on later. Once you advance the week and arrive in bowl season, the first round of job offers go out. If you received any job offers, you'll be notified via an action item titled View Job Offers. If you didn't receive any offers, you'll receive a generic action item called Coach Carousel. Pressing the action item will take you to the carousel screen where you can view any job offers that you have, as well as all of the open jobs around the country. Just because you didn't receive any offers in the first week of bowl season, or if you didn't like the offers that you did receive, doesn't mean the coaching carousel experience is over. Remember, it takes place over the course of multiple weeks. The first week of bowl season is just the beginning. As schools hire and poach coaches from other schools, their previous jobs will become unavailable as an unexpected job opening, and the schools will look to hire a replacement the following week. When viewing a job offer, you'll see the school's new coach preferences, what happened to their previous coach, and who the top candidates are for the job. You'll also see the contract they're offering you and what the contract expectations are. Once you accept an offer, you'll stay with your current school until after the Natty, which is when all job changes are processed. This allows you to take one last ride with your current team and coach any bowl games that they do play in. There will be a countdown in the top right corner of the Dynasty Hub informing you how many weeks are remaining until you change jobs. If you accept a head coach position, you'll be able to manage your staff and hire coordinators at your new school during the rest of the carousel period. If you were fired or your contract expired and you do not accept a new job before the end of the carousel, you'll be automatically placed on a new team after the Natty. So how do schools determine who they want to hire? Each school has a school persona, which determines what they're looking for in their next coach. Schools will evaluate candidates across the following criteria. First is level. The higher a coach's level, the more powerful they are and the more abilities that they have. Schools are always looking for the highest caliber coach they can find. Their scheme. Certain schools, like the military academies, want a coach who runs a very specific style of offense or defense. Their archetype. Schools have a preference on the type of coach they're looking to hire. Just like the real world, blue bloods prefer elite coaches who are a program builder or a CEO. Those roles reserved for head coaches. Pipeline. All coaches have a primary pipeline which provides a boost in recruiting. This is meant to simulate an area of the country where they have strong ties and relationships in recruiting. Schools prefer coaches whose primary pipeline is the same one as the school's recruiting pipelines. And coach prestige. A coach's prestige is compared against the school's team prestige. A 5-star program is not going to hire a coach who is mid and only a C- coach prestige. Reasonable. Together, these form an overall school fit score, which is then used to generate a list of candidates for the job. The school will then extend an offer to one of those coaches. On game theory and the domino effect, it's important to keep in mind that the domino effect when you're evaluating whether or not to accept an offer. Important to keep the domino effect in mind when you're evaluating whether to accept an offer. Just because a job isn't open today doesn't mean it won't be available next week. You can view all the current job openings by using the All Openings filter in the Coach Carousel screen. Every open job will list out the top candidates the school is targeting. Once the week is advanced, one of these 3 candidates will leave their current job and accept the open job. This allows you to predict which jobs may become available next week. You can also view all the coach movements across the college football world in the Staff Moves screen. The Staff Moves screen can be accessed via the Staff Moves action item in the Dynasty Hub. Staff Moves shows all the coaches who changed jobs, their former and new team, and the reason that they left. Screenshot there. Little scroll job here. Ole Miss is an example, and there goes the Staff Move screen, and that's showing you everybody and what happened. On managing your staff as a head coach, you'll now have the opportunity to manage your staff and hire and fire your coordinators. Remember, our coach archetype system does not allow you to be great at everything, making who you surround yourself with that much more important. Staff management is your opportunity to build your staff the way you want in an effort to put yourself in the best position to succeed as a program. You're fired. Managing your staff starts during conference championship week. During this week, you'll be able to fire your coordinators. Be careful, because this is the only week you can do this. After this week, you're unable to replace a coordinator unless they're hired away by another school. Your coordinators will not leave unless you fire them or they're hired by another school. Every coordinator has a standard 2-year contract. Once their contract expires, it'll be automatically renewed for another 2 years. Of course, if you don't like them, you can always tell them that they're fired. If your coordinator has 1 year or less remaining on the current contract, there's a chance they'll be poached and leave for another school. If this happens during the carousel, you'll have the opportunity to hire a replacement. Welcome to the team. Starting bowl week 1, you can hire new coordinators if you have an open position. When you go to hire a new coordinator, you'll be presented with a curated list of candidates. These coaches are chosen for you based on the needs of your school. The logic that's used to determine the list is similar to the AI school logic to determine their top candidates. When looking at a candidate, you'll be able to see their current school, active archetype, coach level, and what schools are interested in them. These are the schools you would be competing with if you made them a job offer. You can also view the coach's talent tree so you can drill down more deeply and see whether or not they would be a good fit with your staff. When you make an offer to a coach, it's not a guarantee they accept it. You can only offer one coach per position each week, and once you've offered them, they'll appear in your staff management screen with an offered tag. When you advance the week and re-enter the screen, you'll find out whether or not they accepted the offer. If they did, they'll join your program after the Natty when we progress all coach moves. If they rejected the offer, you'll have the opportunity to offer another coach. You'll always have at least one coach available to hire who does not require you to compete with another school. Cool. If at the end of the carousel you've not been able to fill an open position, you'll be automatically given a new coordinator that's on par with the caliber of your program. And a couple screenshots of the coordinator screen. There goes an opening a defensive coordinator there. The hire staff screenshot. And they brought on a DC from Louisville, maybe. Build your program. There's no question that in today's world, roster management and talent acquisition are at the forefront of college football and building your program. Players can now transfer whenever they want and have expectations for you and your program. Some are looking to play early. Others want to win championships and play in big games. And stars want to grow their brand beyond the field. Aligning what you and your program can do for them has never been more important. We began our design process by talking with current and former coaches, players, and recruiting experts. What is recruiting and roster management like in the current era? How have player motivations changed? What causes a player to transfer? What differentiates a big-time program from a smaller school when it comes to how they operate on the recruiting trail? At the same time, we spent a ton of time doing quantitative research. We wanted to know anything and everything about recruiting and program management. This ranged from how many 5, 4, and 3-star prospects there are every year to what makes a California quarterback different from a Florida quarterback. We focused heavily on the different geographic regions and what they're known for, as well as researching the recruiting journeys of hundreds of prospects. Why did they ultimately sign with the schools they did? What did the schools in their top 5 and top 3 have in common with each other? Why did they visit some schools and not the others? What role did the head coach and coordinators play in the recruiting process? And lastly, we spent time talking with our community on what they expected from recruiting and program management. Players liked the recruiting in older games because it had depth, but it was also tedious at times. On the contrary, the latest iteration was fast, but also felt shallow and cold. Never actually felt like you were establishing a relationship with the prospect. Want to find a way to blend the two so that recruiting felt meaningful and allowed you to build a connection with recruits through discovery while also being conscious of your time each week. Ultimately, we landed on 4 core goals when building your program. Humanize recruits by giving them unique needs and motivations that the player has to discover by interacting. Differentiate regions of the country by player caliber, quality, and type to authentically capture high school talent based on historical real-world data. They wanted to represent the different resources available to schools, ensuring the top schools can blanket the country while smaller schools will need to be more targeted with their approach, and make the transfer portal feel authentically unpredictable. Welcome to Stage Recruiting. In College Football 25, we're introducing a new staged recruiting experience built around 3 distinct phases: discovery, pitch, and close. Just like the real world, every recruit will be on a different stage of their process, where they are in their process will dictate how you interact with them and the level of engagement they require. Recruiting begins with discovery. In this initial stage, you're finding out which prospects to target, what their skills are, and what they care about most. This stage is all about uncovering information about the recruit as quickly as possible. Sooner you can discover how well they align with your program, the better, as time is of the essence. Once a recruit announces their top 5 schools, it's time to pitch. During the pitch phase, you're selling the recruit on your program and what you offer. How well your school aligns with their motivations will determine how successful you are. The final stage is to close, so where you bring the recruit in for an official visit and attempt to leave a lasting impression about your program. The visit goes well, you'll make huge gains with the recruit and possibly secure a verbal commitment following the visit. Ultimately, the recruit will make their final decision on National Signing Day. Before we dive deeper into each of these, let's start by discussing how every program and recruit is unique. My school. When we talk about there being 134 ways to play, we're talking about more than just on-field gameplay. Every school is graded from D- to A+ across 14 different categories. So D- is the worst you could be, which comprise their My School grades. These grades define who a program is and what their strengths and weaknesses are. No 2 programs are the same, and the grades will dynamically change over the course of your dynasty based on school performance and actions. And here go your 14 grades. Playing time represents how long it'll take a player to become a starter at their position. Playing time individualized to each recruit and player based on their position group and overall. Playing style. This is a representation of how you play. Every player archetype has a stat that's tracked over the course of the season. How high that stat is relative to other teams determines your grade. For example, field general quarterbacks playing style grade is driven by passing yards per game. Championship contender. This measures how close the team is to winning a championship. It takes into account the team's current ranking and roster composition, program tradition. This is a holistic view of a program's history and success over time, based on the number of conference and national championships, total wins, and awards won. Campus lifestyle. This is a representation of the city and area surrounding the campus, as well as the campus itself. This grade cannot be changed or impacted. That is campus lifestyle. Stadium atmosphere, driven by the stadium's toughest places to play ranking, which is determined by a team's historical performance in home games. Pro potential, the projection of how likely it is that players on the current roster will play on Sundays. Brand exposure. This grades a team's overall brand recognition, the potential NIL opportunities a player could get at the school, and how often the school plays in primetime games. Academic prestige. This ranks all universities based on real-world academic rankings. This grade cannot be changed either. Conference prestige represents the overall strength of a conference based on each conference member's team prestige, just an aggregate. Coach prestige, reflection of the school's coaching staff. The head coach carries the most weight here, but coordinators are also taken into account. Coach stability measures how long the coaching staff has been in place and how likely they are to remain there for the next 4 years is coach stability. Athletic facilities. This grade measures the quality of athletic facilities for the program. Waterfalls and barbershops are a plus here. And last one of the 14, proximity to home. This grade is unique to each recruit and is based on where the school is in relation to the recruit's home pipeline. Each grade has a unique set of grading criteria. For example, playing time is graded on a per-player basis. the player's overall or projected overall if they're a recruit is compared to the team's roster to project how many years it'll take them to become a starter. Actions you take on the recruiting trail will impact the playing time grade of both recruits and players on your current roster. Even if a player is a starter today, signing new players in recruiting may negatively impact their playing time grade and cause them to enter the transfer portal. On the other hand, Championship Contender uses a combination of your top 25 poll ranking, team prestige, and an assessment of your current roster quality with Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio, which looks at the percentage of your roster that's made up of 4- and 5-star players. And finally, there's brand exposure, which is a reflection of your school's brand and the potential NIL opportunities a player could earn at your school. While you won't see players having a mustard named after them in College Football 25, recruits and transfers alike will assess their NIL earnings potential and branding opportunities when considering where to go. Most grades update dynamically throughout the season, while some only update at the end of every season. It's important to keep tabs on your grades throughout and how you're trending, because a slide in your grades could trigger decommitments from verbally committed recruits or a sudden transfer portal exodus. Nightmare scenario at the end of a season. Your grades also play a pivotal role in recruiting and will determine how well your pitches land with a recruit. You can see all of your grades and detailed information about them in the My School screen, which can be accessed from the Recruiting Hub. The screen allows you to assess your school's current strengths and weaknesses, as well as how you can improve each grade to become a stronger program. Highlighting a grade will show you the steps you can take to improve it, where you're currently ranked amongst other teams, as well as the players are at risk of transferring because they have a deal breaker attached to that grade. More on deal breakers and why a player would decide to leave later. And here goes the Stanford recruiting screenshot here. A couple different scrolls. There goes the My School tab. Saw that from the video there as well. Each week, the game will surface this information to you in a weekly summary, allowing you to quickly see the health of your program and any changes. The My School report will show you the grades that were positively or negatively impacted by your actions in the last week, as well as any grades that have players who are at risk of transferring if it gets too low. Okay, so this screenshot is specifically, it's not always going to be Championship Contender and program tradition. These are one of the 14 aspects that are putting players at risk. In this screenshot, we see the Sun Devils here running a C+ for their Championship Contender, and their halfback room is not loving it. Collectively, your My School grades form your team prestige, which can be thought of as your My School GPA. Team prestige grades teams from 0 to 5 stars in half-star increments based on their current My School grades. Very few programs will achieve elite 5-star status, and even fewer will be able to maintain it for a prolonged period of time. Ultimately, team prestige plays a pivotal role in recruiting and the caliber of players who want to play for your program. Recruits and where they come from. Each season, more than 3,500 recruits are generated from across the country. Just like the real world, every class is different. Some years have a plethora of great quarterback talent, while others have fewer great prospects. Similarly, the quantity and quality of prospects from each region of the country will vary. Certain regions will be more consistent in the caliber, quality, and type of recruits they produce than others. For example, Southern Cal is known for producing great quarterback talent, while East Texas consistently produces some of the best wide receivers in the country. However, we didn't stop there. We wanted to go deeper to ensure that we're capturing the authenticity of high school talent. Yes, East Texas is known for producing great receivers, but more specifically, they're known for how big and physical their receivers are. As a result, you're going to see bigger and more physical receivers coming out of East Texas, whereas South Florida is going to produce incredibly fast, deep threat receivers who have a smaller size. What a recruit cares about. There's 14 different motivations a recruit can care about, all of which map one-to-one with the My School grades described above. Motivations to the My School grades are one-to-one, 14 of them. Which motivations they care about are influenced by their star rating. A 5-star prospect going to care more about getting to the next level, winning championships, and growing their brand with NIL opportunities than a 2-star will. By contrast, a 2-star more likely to care about staying close to home, coach stability, and academics. Those are the guys you build your program around, Chet. Every recruit will have 3 motivations that they care about. These 3 motivations form what we call their ideal pitch. During the discovery stage, your job as a recruiter is to find their ideal pitch as fast as you possibly can to determine whether or not they align with your program. If a recruit doesn't align with your program, you're going to have an uphill battle to sign them. There's a chance that one of their 3 ideal pitch motivations is also a deal breaker. Deal breakers represent a motivation that a recruit is extremely passionate about and they just won't budge on. If you don't satisfy the deal breaker, they won't talk to you. Additionally, a deal breaker stays with a player forever. So once they're on your roster, they will still have the same deal breaker they had when you recruited them to your school. You can think of this like your promise to them. If you fail to uphold your side of the deal, there's a chance they will decide to enter the transfer portal at the end of the season. And recruiting pipelines. When we analyze historical recruiting data, it was clear that even in today's day and age, recruiting is still highly regionalized. We discussed various recruiting strategies and tactics with former and current coaches, in particular how they handled recruiting in different areas of the country. All of our research and discussion led us to a new way of thinking about pipelines in college football 25. First and foremost, it was clear that not every state's created equal when it comes to recruiting talent and pipelines. Having a pipeline in Florida is much more valuable than one in New York. Whatever. This made clear the traditional approach of having each state be its own pipeline wouldn't accurately represent the recruiting landscape. One of our goals was to balance pipelines in terms of quantity and quality of recruits that come from them, as well as how schools tend to look at them. The result was reshaping pipelines to represent a geographic region rather than a state. For example, Florida is now broken into 3 different pipelines: North Florida, Central Florida, and South Florida. Wow. Similarly, Metro Atlanta is its own pipeline, whereas New York and New Jersey were combined to become a single pipeline. In total, there are 50 pipelines in college football 25. 50. With our newly shaped pipelines, the next step was to look at every school's recruiting classes each of the last 10 years to identify which parts of the country they primarily recruit in. Using this data, developed a tiered ranking system to represent how strong a school is in a given pipeline. Each pipeline has 5 levels, and every school was given a pipeline level based on historical data. The higher your pipeline level, the stronger your influence is in the region. This will boost a recruit's initial interest in your school and the impact of your pitches. A school's pipeline level will never change, which ensures that the schools who are historically strong recruiters in a given region will always have an advantage. For example, Florida's historically dominated recruiting in Central Florida in areas like Lakeland, Tampa, and Orlando. Similarly, LSU regularly reaches into East Texas and all along the Gulf Coast. This also accurately reflects the challenges of recruiting to a small school that's not located in or adjacent to a strong pipeline. Rebuilders paying attention. Generally speaking, your school's pipelines will heavily influence the types of players you'll be able to get and where they're from. The bonus for being the highest tier in a pipeline are extremely strong, and schools are incentivized to recruit their own pipelines. As Oregon, expect to compete often with the likes of Washington and USC for players in Southern California and Arizona. Together, pipelines and deal breakers create a much more realistic and less exploitable recruiting experience. While it's still possible to land 4 stars as a small school, it will require the right fit and a heavy investment of resources and time. Our hope is that you'll no longer have to make custom house rules in your online dynasty to prevent your friend from cheesing the system. On initial interest in top schools, every recruit will start with a list of schools they're interested in. When a recruit generates their initial top schools list, they evaluate every school's My School grades in relation to their ideal pitch and motivations. They also take into account their home pipeline and proximity to home. This means that recruits from Atlanta are more likely to have schools from the Southeast in their initial top schools. However, prospects will look to leave home and play for a school further away if schools outside the region better fit their needs or if they don't consider any schools in the area good enough for them. Similarly, most of the top schools for a prospect who values academics are going to be similar to one another. For example, as Rice, you'll often see the recruits who are interested in your school are also interested in Vanderbilt, Northwestern, and Stanford due to their high academic prestige. Depending on the motivations and location of a recruit, it's possible for them to be open to hearing from any school or already narrowed down to a top 8 or sometimes even a top 5. Once recruiting starts, recruits will narrow down their top schools over time, going from open to top 8 to top 5 to top 3 and ultimately a commitment. Your job is to stay above the cut line each week. Great recruiters will quickly recognize losing battles and pivot their resources to a different prospect with more promise of commitment. After advancing the week, you'll be shown a recruiting summary of any changes in recruit statuses so you can quickly identify where you need to spend time that week, and a screenshot to that effect here. Stage 1 is discovery. The first stage of recruiting is discovery, where your goal is to learn information about the prospect as quickly as possible. The faster you can learn information about the prospect, the sooner you can decide whether or not to pursue them. Discovering intel and information about the recruit is also pivotal in how you craft your pitch and sell your school to the recruit. Uncovering that information before your competition gives you a huge advantage. Uncovering that information before your competition gives you a huge advantage. That's a little better. Prospect identification. Discovery starts with prospect identification. You can find prospects to recruit from the prospect list. The prospect list defaults to the recommended filter, which identifies recruits who would be a good fit for you. The recommended filter uses the same logic as the AI when they're identifying players to recruit. So it works for you too. It takes into account the team, position needs, what pipeline a recruit is from, your recruit's interest in the school, and also their star rating. That helps. You can quickly filter the prospect list by using the L2 and LT position filter or R2 and RT filters, which allow you to filter by top prospects, star rating, and state. If you'd like more control in your search, you can use the advanced search feature by pressing the triangle or Y from within the prospects list. Advanced search also allows you to search for prospects that match a specific set of criteria. You can search for recruits using the following criteria: position, player type or archetype, state, minimum star rating, height, weight, handedness as quarterbacks only, and interest in your school. When viewing a recruit in the prospect list, you'll be able to see bio information about the recruit, as well as key recruiting information like whether or not they have a deal breaker. If they satisfy a team need, how interested they are in your school, their recruiting stage, and how many scholarship offers they have. Once you find a recruit you're interested in, you could go ahead and add them to your board by pressing X. Keep in mind, you can only have 35 prospects on your board at a time. Okay, so I imagine you'll be able to take them off. That answers a question we had about that 35 target screenshot, which you can see here if you're watching. On team needs. When setting up your board, it's important to understand your current roster's strengths and weaknesses. How many players are graduating next season? How many returning starters are you going to have? Within any of the recruiting screens, you can press R3 or the right stick to quickly see your needs at every position. The team needs spreadsheet will show you an overall letter grade for each position, as well as a breakdown by school year for the players who are currently on your roster. It'll also show how many additional players you need at the position and the number of players you've signed and targeted at that position. How many players you need at a position will vary by scheme. For example, if you run a pass-heavy offensive scheme like the veer and shoot, you'll need 10 receivers, whereas a pro-style offense only needs 6. Your scheme is tied to your playbook. The only way to change it is by changing your offensive and defensive playbooks, which can be done at any time. As you continue to target and sign players, your team needs will update accordingly. There goes Michigan State's team needs here. On recruiting hours. Recruiting hours are the core currency to spend on recruiting actions and scouting each week. The amount of recruiting hours you have depends on your team prestige and what part of the season you're in. Teams with a higher prestige will have more recruiting hours each week. It's meant to model the recruiting resources a program has, with a higher tier program having significantly more resources available to them. For example, in the preseason, a 5-star program will have 1,000 recruiting hours compared to only 350 for a 1-star program. The time of year also impacts your recruiting hours. During the preseason and off-season recruiting, you don't have to prepare for a game each Saturday. As a result, you'll have significantly more time to spend on recruiting than you do in the heart of the regular season. In addition to the maximum recruiting hours you can spend in a week, each prospect has a maximum number of hours that you can spend on them in a given week. The default maximum is 50 hours, but this can be increased to a maximum of 70 hours with the always be recruiting ability for that position. ABC. Love that. On recruiting board. The recruiting board is where you'll spend the bulk of your time in recruiting. General layout of the board will be familiar to many. On the left, there's a list of all the recruits who are currently on your board. Each recruit shows high-level information about their status, including how many hours you've allocated to them, how much you've scouted them, if you've offered a scholarship, if you've scheduled a visit, their stage, and their interest level in your school. You can filter the list using L2 and LT. For example, you can filter by prospects and who are ready for a visit. Prospects you haven't offered a scholarship to, recruiting stage, position, and more. You can sort the board by national rank, interest, status, and recruiting stage. And of course, the board can also be manually reordered using R2 or RT. Selecting a recruit allows you to dive deeper in and begin interaction with them. At the top of the screen, you'll see bio information about the recruit, as well as a large bar with stages on it. This bar represents the recruit's overall progression towards each stage and ultimately committing to a team. Your cutoff levels here. The dark area of the bar is how much the recruit progressed over the last week. Within the overview tab, you can see a summary of where each school stands. Similar to the top bar, each school has their own bar, which represents their progression with the recruit. The top school's list is a zoomed-in snapshot of the recruit's progression to the next stage. Once a team fills their bar, the recruit will progress to the next stage, and the top school's bars will be reset. Any teams below the cut line will be locked out and no longer able to talk to the recruit. On scouting, before you start offering scholarships and deciding your limited recruiting hours, and dedicating your limited recruiting hours and resources to prospects, it's important to make sure you're targeting the right ones for your program. During the preseason, you're only able to scout and offer scholarships, so it's a great time to scout players and ensure you're targeting the right prospects. In College Football 25, we're introducing a new scouting system designed to represent the ambiguity and progressive discovery of a high school player's skills. And a couple snapshots for you there. On Frank Mahoney, 5-star. Looks like he's going to be great. Prior to scouting a player, you'll only be able to see their star rating, height, weight, hometown, position, and archetype. You'll see question marks on their attributes, abilities, and development trait. The attributes represent the top 10 ratings for their archetype. And each attribute has 4 states of scouting. Unscouted is represented by question marks and is the default state for every recruit. Partially scouted, at which point you'll see horizontal bars appear. Left side of the bar is 0 and the right side is 99. Within the bar is a gold zone that covers 25% of the bar's space. The player's true rating for that attribute is somewhere in this range. Mostly scouted is a mostly scouted attribute bar. You have a much clearer picture of the prospect. At this point, the gold zone only covers 10% of the bar, so the range of the prospect only 10%. And of course, fully scouted, when a rating's fully scouted, you know exactly how good the prospect is and their exact attribute rating is revealed. Each time you scout a prospect, you'll reveal a limited amount of information about them. Sometimes scouting a player will fully scout an attribute, while other attributes may only be partially scouted. Additionally, each scouting action will also reveal physical and mental abilities. While attributes and abilities are able to be scouted, a player's development trait is not. When we talk with coaches about identifying a player's dev trait, they overwhelmingly said it's an intangible factor that's difficult to identify without a distinct intuition and direct in-person contact with a recruit. As a result of our discussions, the primary time you'll be able to unlock a prospect's dev trait is on National Signing Day. However, if you own the mind reader ability, there's a chance that you'll learn their dev trait when you spend time with them during their official visit. The coaches we talked with also described how the level of ambiguity and uncertainty around a player's skill set is higher for lower star-rated players. This is because of how much visibility the top prospects get from social media, scouts, and high-profile camps. Conversely, Lower star rated recruits generally have less visibility, which leads to a greater level of uncertainty and unknown what their true skill is. This creates an opportunity to find a diamond in the rough. We've modeled this uncertainty and unknown with our gem and bust system. When scouting a player, there's a chance you identify that their true skill is actually better or worse than their star rating indicates. For example, a 4-star bust is really a 3-star quality prospect, while a 4-star gem has the skill level of a 5-star. Of course, even if a player is a bust, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad player. A 5-star bust is still going to be pretty gosh darn good. The system creates a lot of variance in lower star rated prospects and provides you with the opportunity to build your program with high quality players who slip through the cracks of the recruiting rankings. Landing top blue chip prospects is incredibly difficult. So it's going to be a highly effective recruiting strategy to build your program. Think back to the rise of Boise State and the consistency of Oregon State in the early to mid 2000s. Both these programs excelled at finding gems who were under-recruited and overlooked by big schools. On finding the ideal pitch, once you've determined the prospects meet your initial criteria, it's time to begin uncovering intel about their motivations and what they care about. Remember, every prospect has 3 motivations they care about, which comprise their ideal pitch. Your goal is to discover their ideal pitch as quick as you can so you know if their motivations align with your program and what you're good at, so you have the information you need when you begin pitching in stage 2. In stage 1, there's 5 recruiting actions you can use to uncover information about the prospect. In addition to uncovering info, you'll also be able to gain some influence with the prospect. Each action has a recruiting hour cost and a corresponding benefit. The more hours you spend on a recruit, the faster you'll uncover information and the more influence you'll gain. You can increase how fast you uncover information and the amount of influence you earn with the most influential ability, which gives a bonus to recruiting actions. The 5 recruiting actions are as follows. You can offer a scholarship. Scholarships show the prospect you're very interested. As a result, you'll gain a small weekly influence bonus with the prospect after offering them a scholarship. Additionally, you won't be able to bring them on campus for an official visit or receive a commitment from a prospect until you've offered them a scholarship. You could search their social media. Spend some time scrolling through a player's social media to learn a bit more about them. This will give you a very small amount of influence when they see you like their story. Just be careful to not like an image from 3 years ago. Fair enough. Good comms. You could use that. That's good advice any which way you cut it. You can DM the player. You can message the player directly on social media to start a conversation and learn more information about them. DMs will give you a small amount of influence as you start to build that relationship. You can contact friends and family. Make a few phone calls to a player's family and close friends to learn a lot more about what the prospect values. This action will gain a significant amount of influence with the prospect when word gets back to them that you called and when grandma starts raving about you and the program at Thanksgiving dinner. And you can send the house. From the recruiting coordinator to every other coach on your staff, send every available resource you have after a prospect to gain as much influence with them as you possibly can. As you uncover their motivations, they'll no longer display a question mark. If the motivation displays a red X, the recruit doesn't care about it. And if it displays a green check, it's one of their 3 motivations they do care about. So every player's only going to have 3 checks. And your hope is that your stats from your school match up well with the things that they think are important. With this added depth in recruiting, we wanted to make sure that recruiting did not become a monotonous chore that took a significant amount of time each week. With this in mind, every recruiting action is set it and forget it, meaning it'll stay week over week until the recruit either locks you out, commits, or you decide to change your recruiting actions. One more time. They didn't want it to become a monotonous chore. With this in mind, every recruiting action is set it and forget it, meaning they'll stay week over week until something happens with the recruit. Nice. An example there, a couple screenshots. Apparently getting close to halfway. In stage 2 comes your pitch. After the recruit narrows their top schools to 5, it's time to begin pitching the prospect on your school and what you have to offer. By this point, you should have a good amount of information about the prospect and what they care about. The more information you have, the more surgical you can be with your pitch. If you don't have much information about the prospect, You'll effectively be flying blind and risk pitching them on something they just don't care about. If your pitch doesn't align with their motivations, it can actually have an adverse effect on their perception of you in the program. Not paying attention. When pitching a prospect, there's two different pitches you can use. A soft sell awards a moderate amount of influence when choosing the correct pitch. It also limits the downside risk and penalty of pitching the prospect on something they don't care about. This is the best when you have some idea of what the recruit is motivated by. Or a hard sell provides the most influence in choosing the correct pitch, but also comes with the largest penalty if you pitch the wrong thing. It's best to hard sell the recruit when you know their ideal pitch, or if you're just desperate and hoping for the best. After selecting a pitch type, you'll then be able to select your pitch. Each pitch is a collection of 3 motivations, and there are 20 pitches in total. For example, the Sunday-bound pitch sells a recruit on your school being a championship-level contender, its conference prestige, and your school's track record of sending kids to the next level. How well the pitch aligns with the prospect's motivations, as well as your associated My School grades, will ultimately determine how well your pitch lands with the prospect. You can increase the impact of your My School grades with the upsell ability. If your school does not perfectly align with the ideal pitch, if you're looking for a way to get a competitive advantage, you can sway the prospect and change their motivations. Successfully swaying a prospect will give them a second ideal pitch that's only available to you. It's possible that the second ideal pitch also creates a third ideal pitch combination as a result. Your chances of successfully swaying a prospect increase the more overlap there is between their ideal pitch motivations and the pitch that you're trying to sway them on. It's possible to sway them on a pitch with zero motivation overlap, but it's a very low probability of success that happens. For example, let's say the prospect's current ideal pitch is hometown hero, which includes campus lifestyle, proximity to home, and program tradition. To increase your probability of success, you would want to sway them on a pitch that also has 1 or 2 of the hometown hero motivations. In this example, let's sway the prospect on the college experience pitch, which includes academic prestige, campus lifestyle, and stadium atmosphere. If the sway is successful, the prospect will now care about academic prestige and stadium atmosphere in addition to the 3 motivations they already cared about as part of their ideal pitch. A successful sway gives you ability to pitch 2 or more ideal pitches for maximum influence. You match them to your school's A-pluses if you have them. It also provides you with the opportunity to more closely align the prospect with your school's strengths. This is an incredibly powerful action, and if used properly, can separate you from the competition. There is a lot in that paragraph there. That's a lot. And stage 3, naturally, your close. Final step in the recruiting journey is to close. This is when you bring the prospect in for an official visit and attempt to leave a lasting impression with them. In order to schedule a visit with a prospect, they must be down to their top 5 schools, and you need to have offered them a scholarship. No recruit wants to take the time to visit someone that won't even give them an offer. A recruit can only take an official visit to a school when they're on a bye week or when they have a home game. Additionally, schools can only host up to 4 recruits in a single week. When scheduling a visit with a prospect, you'll be charged 40 recruiting hours. The cost to schedule a visit does not count toward the maximum number of hours you can allocate to the recruit in a week. This allows you to continue your normal recruiting of the prospect in the same week that you schedule a visit. Set it and forget it. A visit is broken down into 2 main parts, scheduling and activity. Timing is everything when it comes to scheduling a visit. Waiting to bring in the recruit for a big-time rivalry game late in the season could have a lot of upside, but also carries the risk since there's a chance the prospect will commit elsewhere prior to the visit date. Who you play the day your visit also matters. Every visit during the regular season comes with a set of game day stakes, which determine the influence bonus you'll receive with the recruit for winning the game and the potential downside for the loss. The stakes are set by the importance and visibility of the game the prospect will attend. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to go to a game in a weak environment. Playing a lower tier opponent will provide very little upside and major downside if you lose. Conversely, playing your rival, who's also a top 5 team, will have the potential to leave a lasting impression. Of course, you can avoid any risk entirely by scheduling during a bye week, but then you get no game-related bonus at all. You better make sure you win. Finally, the other prospects who are visiting that weekend can have a positive or negative impact based on whether or not their positions are complementary or competitive. For example, having a quarterback and a left tackle visit at the same time will give a complimentary bonus, whereas scheduling 2 quarterbacks on the same day is considered a competitive visit and will negatively impact both of their visits. After setting which date the prospect is going to visit, the next step is to select what they're going to do on their visit. There's 14 activities you can do during a visit, and each one maps to a prospect motivation. 14 activities for 14 of the motivations for the 14 My School grades. Similar to pitches, the alignment of the recruit's interest level in that activity in your My School grade will determine how much the recruit enjoys the activity. Nailing the visit can often be the difference between bringing in a top 5 class or being left at the altar on signing day. If things go well, there's a chance that the recruit will verbally commit to your school following the visit. While you should feel good about securing a verbal commitment, it's critical that you stay on top of things until they sign their letter of intent on signing day. If a prospect's verbally committed and they have a deal breaker, they'll decommit from your school if you fall below the required grade threshold prior to signing day. Once a player is signed on signing day, you got nothing to worry about until they arrive on campus, and next challenge is keeping them happy and out of the transfer pool. A few screenshots listed here. And Brian McCadley landed by Bama. The rich get richer. Unbelievable. Hey, coach, I'm sorry, but I've decided to leave. Over the last 3 years, the transfer portal has completely reshaped college football and how you build your roster. While it can be used to quickly upgrade your roster, it can also gut your program if a mass of players heads to the exits. Just like recruits, players on your roster can also have a deal breaker, and any recruit that has a deal breaker will keep their deal breaker when they join your roster. Remember, deal breakers can be thought of as a promise between you and the player. If you fail to uphold your end of the deal, there's a chance they leave in the offseason. The corresponding My School grade falling below the threshold does not guarantee that they'll leave, but the probability of a player transferring after their deal breaker has been violated is driven by their overall, with higher overall players being more likely to transfer. Keep in mind that every action you take throughout the season has the potential to impact your My School grades and therefore increase a player's chance of leaving. A perfect example is when the coaching carousel, where coach firings or coaches leaving for new jobs could immediately impact a team's coach prestige grade, resulting in players entering the portal. In addition to players entering the portal, high overall players may look to go pro and enter the draft if they've been in the school for 3 or more years. Players who are entering the pro draft will display the round they're projected to be drafted in. Once a player has decided to leave, you'll have an opportunity to persuade them to stay. The chance to successfully persuade a player to stay is determined by their overall and your coach prestige. Higher overall players will be harder to convince than low overall players. However, keep in mind that you only have a limited number of persuasion attempts. The number of persuasion attempts you have is determined by your coach prestige. The higher prestige, the more attempts you'll have. You can increase the number of persuasion attempts with the gift of gab ability, and you can increase your chance of successfully persuading a player to stay with the roster retainer ability. Both of these abilities are available in the program builder archetype. After advancing a week, you'll be able to see the pro draft results, which show where players were drafted. When creating the pro draft results, we use real-world data and pro draft trends to inform when players are drafted based on their overall and their position. I think it's best if you play elsewhere. While players have the opportunity to leave via the transfer portal every season, you'll also have the opportunity to make roster changes. Every offseason, you're required to get back down to 85 players on your roster. Unfortunately, that means if you're over the 85-man limit, you're going to be forced to encourage some players to transfer and find a new home. Even if you're at or below 85 players on the roster, you can still encourage players to transfer in order to make room for new players the next season. And no, you can't encourage the brand new freshman you just signed to find a new home the moment he gets on campus. On the transfer portal, as we said at the beginning, one of our goals was to make the transfer portal authentically unpredictable. This begins with players leaving. Some schools may face a mass exodus of players while others may be left untouched. Once all players have decided whether to stay or go, the transfer portal will officially open at the start of off-season recruiting. Off-season recruiting lasts 4 weeks in total, and transfers will make their final decisions at the end of it on National Signing Day. Just like in real life, this is a chaotic 4 weeks where players are committing quickly and team rosters are rapidly changing. Teams will have to constantly make quick decisions, sometimes with limited information. Do you want to continue pursuing high school recruits? Are there transfers who can immediately improve the roster? How much time do you want to spend discovering a transfer's motivations and scouting them versus selling them on your program? And how soon do you want to bring a transfer in for a visit? Every transfer is given a star rating based on their overall and as a national, state, and position ranking. Just like high school prospects, since people change over time, transfers are assigned a new ideal pitch and motivations after they transfer. Every player in the transfer portal has the same deal breaker that caused them to transfer originally. Their new ideal pitch will include the deal breaker motivation, and it will be relevant to transfers and their unique needs. After their new ideal pitch and motivations have been set, transfers will evaluate every school and generate a top schools list just like high school prospects do. They'll look at how their motivations align with each school and adjust for pipelines and proximity to home. Since 4- and 5-star prospects are in the highest demand, they know more concretely what they're looking for, and they'll only consider 5 schools. If you're not in their top 5, you're not going to be able to talk to them. Lower star-rated prospects will vary in terms of schools that they're considering. Some will be completely open, while others will have as few as 3 that they're considering. Regardless of where they start, the process of recruiting a transfer is fast, and you'll need to make quick decisions. Your interactions with a transfer will be very similar to interacting with a high school recruit. Depending on their stage, you'll add recruiting actions, pitch your school, and bring them to your campus on a visit to try to close out the deal. So heavy overlap then between transfer portal and recruiting tools, it sounds like. When evaluating whether to target transfers or high school prospects, schools will look at each position on the roster throughout the season and monitor their immediate needs. If a position group does not meet their requirements, they'll hold a spot on their recruiting board for an off-season transfer who they believe can come in and be an immediate contributor. Don't be surprised if you see teams finish early signing day with a light recruiting class in preparation for a big recruiting push in the transfer portal. Of course, once they see the players who are actually in the portal, their priorities may change. Having a needed left tackle is nice and all during the season, but if there's a 5-star transfer quarterback who wants to come to your school, why turn him down? And on signing day, just like the real world, College Football 25 features both early signing day and national signing day. Early signing day takes place at the start of bowl season after the regular season has been completed. National signing day takes place 7 weeks after the national championship. On signing day, any players who have verbally committed to a school prior to signing day will sign, meaning they can no longer decommit. The majority of prospects will commit prior to early signing day, but some recruits may last late into the cycle. Those prospects, along with transfers, will ultimately sign their letter of intent on national signing day. Throughout recruiting, you can view the team recruiting rankings in the Top Classes Lab or the Recruiting Hub. Top Class allow you to view the team recruiting rankings for high school prospects, transfers, or combined. You can also filter the rankings by conference. Any recruits who are unsigned after National Signing Day will stick around and become walk-ons in the offseason. With that being said, the days of a player who is actively recruited not committing anywhere and drifting off to the ether are over. No longer will you have to speculate and fantasize what happened to them. Did they fail to get into school because of grades? Did they have a change of heart and decide to try archery instead? Was it something you said? Now the team with the highest influence on signing day will get the player as long as they've offered them a scholarship. This was a huge quality of life improvement that we all felt was a must-have, and we are very happy to be able to deliver it. Couple screen grabs for you on position changes. Oh, sorry, that's not a position change. That's top classes for teams. Here goes position changes. On position changes, following signing day, you'll have the opportunity to change player positions ahead of off-season progression. This is especially important for any athletes you sign in recruiting as they don't have an actual position. If you forget to set an athlete's position, they'll be automatically assigned their primary archetype's position when you advance the week. Players will be able to change to any other position regardless of their original position. The position change spreadsheet will show you their projected overall at the new position, which archetype they'd become, and where they'd rank on the depth chart, and the number of players at the position. Once you confirm the new position, they'll receive a new set of physical abilities that are specific to that archetype. The physical abilities and tiers they receive are determined by their new attributes. Mental abilities will not change unless the mental ability does not apply to their new position. Something like a quarterback mental ability is not going to be left over if you move them to wide receiver, I imagine. On player progression. In college football, the offseason is the most impactful time period when it comes to player development. While players can improve throughout the season, the bulk of the progression and development happens during the spring and the summer. Every season we see players who put in work during the offseason and come back bigger, stronger, faster, and overall a significantly better player. Player progression in college football 25 is no different. All about the gains. In Dynasty, players will automatically progress their attributes and physical abilities. Mental abilities cannot be upgraded, allowing for greater differentiation between players. Mental abilities cannot be upgraded, allowing for greater differentiation between players. Players will progress during the season based on their on-field performance, but the bulk of their progression will happen in the offseason. Off-season progression happens after the position changes stage, so that players will progress in their new positions. The amount of player progresses in the offseason is influenced by their school year, your coach abilities, and their development trait. To simulate the real-world difference in physical maturity between a freshman and a senior, younger players like rising sophomores will take larger leaps in the offseason than a rising senior. Similarly, a player's coaching staff will have a significant impact on their development. For example, motivators have the pay it forward ability, which awards bonus XP to a position group every time a player at that position is drafted in the first 3 rounds. Motivators also have the put in work ability, which increases offseason development for players in a particular position group. Progression will then be further modified by the player's own development trait. In college football 25, there are 4 player development traits. Normal. Players are most common, progress at a standard rate, expect them to steadily grow over their career. Impact is level 2 out of 4. The type of player can really change a team. They'll progress faster than normal with higher upside. Level 3 out of 4. Star, a potential Sunday player. There are very few of these to go around, and they'll establish themselves early as fast learners. And the best of the best, level 4 of 4, is elite, the best of the best. These players will make a statement the moment they get on campus and have the potential to be an all-time great. Once a player's on your roster, their dev trait is known and can be seen in the player card, which can be accessed by pressing triangle or Y on the player on the roster screen. When a player is a recruit, their development trait is hidden until National Signing Day, unless you have the Strategist Archetype's Mind Reader ability, which gives you a chance to learn their dev trait when they come in for an official visit. We heard about that earlier. On skill groups, as opposed to progressing each attribute individually, for example, trucking, players will instead progress an entire skill group. Sounds familiar. A skill group is a collection of related attributes. For example, the running back power skill group includes trucking, strength, stiff arm, toughness, jumping, injury. Every skill group has a max level of 10. Each time you upgrade a skill group, it'll increase 1 level and progress all of the attributes within that skill group. With that being said, some players will have a skill group max level or cap that is less than 10. So some players can have a skill group max. You might be capped on some players. Skill group caps can be thought of as a player's max potential in the particular area. These will vary by player, skill group, position, and archetype. Once a skill group has hit the cap, it can't be upgraded unless the coach has the architect archetype and the limitless, or put a ring on it, abilities. Limitless provides a chance to increase a random skill cap every time the player levels up, and put a ring on it provides a chance to increase their highest skill cap after winning a conference or a national championship. An example of the player card here. So this player, Quinshawn Judkins, has 2 out of his 3 mental abilities, but 2, 3, 4, looks like 5 gold physical abilities. On mental and physical abilities, as Scott described in the gameplay deep dive, players can have up to 5 physical abilities and 3 mental abilities. Both physical and mental abilities have 4 tiers: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Physical abilities are determined by the player's archetype, while mental abilities are position specific. While progressing, players will look to upgrade their physical abilities if they meet the rating requirement. Every tier of physical ability has an associated attribute requirement. This is also familiar. For example, in order to have a platinum workhorse ability, a player must have 95 toughness. As said above, Dynasty players cannot upgrade their mental abilities. So if a player doesn't come in as a freshman with a particular mental ability, there's no way for them to earn that ability through progression. Mental abilities are a lock. So Quinshon Judkins is never going to have a third. He has 2 mental abilities, and that's what he's got. Headstrong and fan favorite, specifically. On impact players. Impact players are back, and a quick way for you to easily identify the key players on the other team. Every team will have at least one offensive and at least one defensive player who's an impact player. However, unlike the past, there's no limit on the number of impact players a team can have. Yeah. Explosive offenses with playmakers everywhere might have 5 or 6 impact players across the board, letting you know straight up that they got dudes and they are about to cook. There goes Georgia with quite a few impact players. At least one per offense and defense, though, minimum. On managing wear and tear. With the introduction of the new wear and tear system, the week-to-week management of your players is more essential than ever before. As described in the gameplay deep dive, players can incur damage to body parts during gameplay. The more damage a body part is, the more it'll impact their on-field performance. In addition to on-field gameplay, players will also incur wear and tear damage based on Super Sim. Each week, players will recover some of their wear and tear damage. The amount of recovery is dependent on how damaged the body part is. For example, let's say in a previous game, your running back severely damaged his right ankle and his left shoulder was only slightly damaged. The next week, you can expect his shoulder to be fully recovered and his ankle to only be slightly recovered. His ankle will then be something you want to monitor within the next game. You could decide to sit him in an effort to allow him to get back to full health the following week, or you could play him at the risk of increasing how long it takes him to fully recover. In an effort to ensure that players are not disappearing in big-time games late in the season, we've set minimums that players will always recover to when advancing the week. There are minimum recovery thresholds. Good news. You can monitor your players' wear and tear damage by viewing the health tab in their player card. To access this, go to the roster spreadsheet. Press triangle on a player. This screen will show his damaged body parts and associated ratings impacts. Delivering the world of college football. One of the biggest challenges we face in the development of College Football 25 was the task of recreating everything that makes the sport of college football so unique. Unlike most professional sports where there's so much of the league is templatized, thought you would get me. I'm a philosopher. And where uniformity helps drive a quest for parity, that is a heck of a sentence. Well, from the top, I say, unlike most professional sports, where so much of the league is templatized and where uniformity helps drive a quest for parity, college football is a sport that marches to the beat of its own drum. Yeah, no, we got to submit that for an Emmy. That is such a bar. It's a sport that thrives on a chaos created by that very lack of conformity. And while that lack of conformity makes college football so special, it also makes the task of building the world of college football so much more challenging. So let's talk about those elements that help immerse you in your coaching journey and the recruiting trail. A new day in college football. A lot's happened since we last made a college football game. Most notably, the entirety of the 4-team college football playoff format has come and gone. But this year starts a new day for college football with the 12-team format, and we get to experience it first in College Football 25. There it is, the college football playoff. There are a lot of intricacies with how the new college football playoff format that college football fans will need to get used to. During development, members of our team were able to participate in a mock selection committee session hosted by the College Football Playoff to help us better understand the process of how the committee determines their rankings. Cool. With the expansion to the new 12-team format, we're able to apply those learnings to project how the committee will value wins and losses in a world where going undefeated in a power conference is going to be less and less common, and the perception of schedule imbalance continues to widen. While the media and coaches polls run throughout the entire season, you'll need to wait for the calendar to turn to November before you start to get the first peek at how the 12-team bracket is shaping up. That'll be your first look at both the college football top 25, as well as how the playoff would be seeded based on those rankings and seedings rules. We created unique logic for our college football playoff poll to model how we anticipate the rankings to look in the new format. Generating a believable opinion-based poll is no easy feat, especially one where we're projecting what may happen versus being able to use real-world results as our reference point. You are what your record says you are is a misnomer in college football. So factors like school and conference prestige can impact where a school finds itself in a college football playoff poll. Each week of the season, the coaches, media, and college football playoff polls, along with the 12-team bracket update based on the most recent results and the final rankings and bracket, are revealed following the completion of conference championship games. Finalized after conference championship games. Ohio State v. Texas. Here you go, Ohio State fans. Some love for you there. Once the rankings are set, now it's time to seed the bracket. As many people reading this already know, the 12-team format is a 5+7 model, meaning that the 5 highest-ranked conference champions will get automatic bursts into the playoff, and the remaining 7 spots will be filled based on order of the final college football playoff ranking. 5 guaranteed, 7 up for the poll. The only way to get a first-round bye is to be one of the 4 highest-ranked conference champions. So an undefeated Notre Dame or any other independent, as well as the winner of the Pac-12, can be seeded no higher than 5 and will never be eligible to skip the playoffs' first round. Interesting. The 5th automatic qualifier that did not get a first-round bye will be seeded based on where they rank in the final college football playoff poll. Strength of your conference going to be important as it was in 14. One of the most exciting parts about the new 12-team format is that the first-round games will be played on campus. Hosting one of these games means you'll have all your home field advantage on your side as you take on your opponent as you look to win in advance. The playoff quarterfinal and semifinal games will take place at the bowls formerly known as the New Year's Six, the Orange Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Rose, Fiesta, Cotton, and Peach Bowl, which rotate annually each year of a dynasty, just like they will in real life. The College Football Playoff National Championship game has its own rotation of hosts. Starting with Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, the championship game will rotate through an additional 10 locations. So we'll have 10 natty locations before looping back around as you continue deeper into your dynasty. Not bad. 10 years before you repeat at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. In addition to the college football playoff, we also feature 34 bowl games, each using their real-world bowl tie-ins. So the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl will annually feature teams from the Sun Belt and Conference USA, and TransPerfect Music City Bowl will feature teams from the SEC and the Big Ten, etc. So they're staying faithful to that front. Just like the college football playoff bracket, you'll get your first look at the bowl projections in the first week of November each season. Each week that you keep winning, you can see yourself climbing the polls, playing in a more prestigious bowl, all while trying to earn a berth in the college football playoff. The new era of college football is here, and by the time the 12-team playoff happens in real life, you'll already be an expert on how the format works just by playing Dynasty mode. Full immersion. Meet your new neighbor. Speaking of the dawn of a new era, the latest round of conference realignment has dramatically changed the landscape of college football. And just like the 12-team college football playoff format, you'll get to experience that new reality first in College Football 25 with custom conferences. Every conference is set with their 2024 alignment. The Sun Belt is the last conference to feature divisions, and the scheduling logic has been set for both the current season as well as the future year rotation based on each conference's rule set. The SEC will accurately follow the 8-game with 1 protected opponent rotation, while the Big Ten will utilize their 9-game flex protect model, and so on. Wow, conference-specific rules. Cool. If you need a refresher of who's where, if you're looking to follow along with the conference races, you can keep an eye on everything on the conference standings screen. That's cool too. A little more localized hub for all your conference questions. You could be your own conference commissioner. If you prefer to reset conferences to a previous configuration, push forward to a potential future, or just blow everything up and make whatever conference membership you want and adjust the rules to your liking, you have the power to be the czar of college football and set things how you'd like them with custom conferences. You can reduce any conference to as few as 4 members, and you grow any conference to as large as 20. In addition to moving schools into different conferences, you can have a school go independent for the ultimate in schedule flexibility. But remember, it comes at the expense of a potential first-round bye in the college football playoff. Fair enough. You'll also have the ability to edit each conference's rules, determining if they will or will not have divisions, what those divisions' names are, how many conference games will be played annually, if the conference will have a conference championship game, and the location of that championship game, either at a neutral site location or the home stadium of the highest-ranked teams. Get to switch around your conference rules in there. You'll be able to make adjustments to conference membership and rules when starting a dynasty as well as at the end of each offseason, giving you total flexibility to change things however you want, both at the start of a dynasty as well as change the landscape of the future based on your dynasty results to keep things fresh and interesting as you go deeper into your coaching career. Moving conferences does not mean you're stuck with the old conference's jersey patch for the logo on the 25-yard lines. Those will dynamically update based on conference membership. Very cool. There you have it. James Madison, ACC. In Online Dynasty, only the commissioner can make conference changes. Nice. Let's talk schedules. College football is unlike any sport in that so many of the weeks of the season mean something special to so many different schools. It's not enough to make sure that the schedules rotate and that home and away status gets flipped for the new year. If it's a third Saturday in October, Tennessee better be playing Alabama. If it's Thanksgiving weekend, then the Iron Bowl, the big game, Florida State and Florida, and a host of other rivalry games better be on the table next to the turkey and the stuffing. Dynasty Mode's scheduling system will make sure those special games get filled in the correct weeks before adding in the rest of the conference and non-conference slate to get each school to their 12 games. Nice. So prioritizing event type of games to make sure that those happen and don't get overridden. For non-conference games, we've included as many real-world games as were announced by the time we had to lock schedules. So when you get to 2027 and 2028, the Florida State-Georgia home and home series, okay, will already be scheduled. In 2029 and 2030, the Notre Dame-Bama home and home will be scheduled. I'm not sure what they're saying there. I might be small braining. Our schedule generator will be used to fill out everyone's schedule to make sure that every school has 12 games for all 30 years of a dynasty. Kickoff games like the Duke's Mayo Classic and the Vegas Classic are here as well and will be scheduled in future years of Dynasty Mode. Another recent addition to the world of college football is the concept of Week 0. While the season still kicks off on Labor Day weekend for a majority of schools, some get things started the week prior in what's been affectionately termed Week 0. The authentic Week 0 games are scheduled for year 1 of Dynasty, and in your future years, Week 0 will get utilized. However, the bulk of schools will still put toe to leather for the first time in the traditional Labor Day week window. A preseason scrimmage, it sounds like. You can see your team's entire schedule on the team schedule screen or look at the schedule around the country week by week from Scores and Schedules. Each week, the broadcast type will be determined based on what is the biggest game on that week's slate. If your game's either a national or streaming broadcast, it'll be called by our team of Reese Davis, Jesse Palmer, and David Polak. The game of the week will be called by Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. The crowd themes that our friends in Presentation talked about recently also appear in Dynasty. If your school does a whiteout, a blackout, a checkerboard, striping, etc., you'll see those crowd themes in the first home game of the season, for rivalry games, and if you're named as the game of the week. You could set your schedule. In addition to custom conferences, you can also customize your non-conference schedule via custom schedules every preseason. Conference games are designated with a lock icon and cannot be edited, but your non-conference games do not have a lock, signifying that they're fair game to go ahead and edit. Looks familiar, which is a good thing. Select any week that features a non-conference opponent or any bye week to be able to select a different team to play in that week. You can only have a maximum of 12 games, so you'll need to remove a game before trying to add a new one. When you select a week, you'll be able to see all the available opponents that you can choose from. Also familiar for us. Some schools will not be available if they're already locked into a conference game in that week, so you'll have more luck finding a larger set of available teams early in the season before most schools have started conference play. Custom schedule screens. You can also change if the non-conference game is a home or away game by simply toggling the home or away status on the schedule screen. To avoid the mass confusion of multiple people trying to edit schedules at the same time, the commissioner in an online dynasty is responsible for making all custom schedule changes. That's also good news. Team Builder in online dynasty. Come on, man. Team Builder is back. You can import up to 16 Team Builder teams in a private online dynasty. The commissioner will need to replace existing FBS schools with the Team Builder teams that they want to add when setting up the dynasty. Including Team Builder schools is only available at the creation of the league, and they can only be used in private online dynasties. So make sure your commissioner knows which school you want to use when getting the online dynasty started. Okay, new information. We're capped at 16 teams if we want to do Team Builder, half of the 32, which is interesting. And you have to bring them in when you start the league. So if you wanted to do a Team Builder online dynasty, you can only have 16 users. That might be better for the playoff. Okay, I don't want to... No commentary, just the text here. To burn a shirt or not to burn a shirt. The changes in the world of college football have not been limited to off the field. Handling red shirts have also seen a recent overhaul. And to keep in line with the real world, we've implemented the ability to play in up to 4 games in a season and still be able to take a red shirt. Each preseason, you'll have the option of selecting which players you for sure want a red shirt. And during the course of the season, you can monitor how many games each player has played in order to make the determination on whether you want to keep playing that player or have him sit the remainder of the year in order to preserve his redshirt status. Those 4 games can be played at any point in the season, so you can get a freshman some game reps early in the year and then hold him out until the end of the season and then bring him back in for a YOF run if wear and tear has run your roster down and you need a fresh body when the season matters most. Once a player has played in their 5th game in a season, they're no longer eligible for a redshirt that year, but will be eligible for a redshirt the following year. If micromanaging redshirts isn't your thing, no worries. Anyone who's eligible for a redshirt at the end of the season will have it automatically applied. On earning some hardware, college football loves to celebrate accomplishments, whether it's reclaiming a 100-plus-year-old water jug from a rival, like the annual Michigan and Minnesota game, a coach hoisting up the SEC championship trophy in Atlanta in early December, or the most outstanding player in college football striking the iconic pose just 1 week later. Oh, they can't say the word? Oh, no, yeah, they can. Okay. College football and awards are synonymous. Rivalry trophies will be on the line, and the winner of each contest takes home both the trophy and bragging rights for the year. Conference, bowl, and national titles will contribute both to your coach's pedigree, but also the school's program, tradition, grade. When it comes to individual awards, the conversation has to start with the most storied trophy in all of sports, the Heisman Memorial Trophy, which is awarded annually to the most outstanding player in college football. Each week of the season, keep tabs on the Heisman Watch to see who's in the running for the prestigious award as the Heisman race heats up as we get to the award being announced heading into the first bowl week. They got Ollie Gordon, an early favorite in this screenshot here. I like that, with Dylan Gabriel winning it from Oregon. In addition to the Heisman, we have other individual positional awards like the Lou Groza, Lombardi, the Unitas Golden Arm Award, among others. We also have the Broyles Award for the best coordinator in the country to go along with our Head Coach of the Year award. Preseason and postseason All-American teams are named annually as well. In the preseason, both first and second team All-American teams are named at the national and conference level. The postseason All-American teams feature the first, second, and freshman teams at the national and conference level as well. There goes your All-American list. You'll be able to follow the nominees and finalists for the awards from the college football tab. Got me on my toes. CFB, not CFP. Of the Dynasty Hub. Then the All-American teams are announced in the preseason as well as the first week of bowl season when the other awards are handed out. In addition to annual awards, Players of the Week on offense and defense are determined both at the national and conference level. Records are made to be broken. No career mode would be complete without the tracking of player stats and the record book. Season stats track individual player stats for the current season, while team stats track a number of categories at the team level for the current season. Career stats track individual player stats for the entirety of their collegiate career, and coach stats track the lifetime accomplishments of coaches. My man Papa Fausti with the 10 bomb on Twitch. Hold that thought, good brother. I think we almost made it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, brother. Hold that thought. Coach stats track the lifetime accomplishments of coaches and also serves as a way to get a look at each coach's current job security status so that you can get an early look at what jobs may become available on the coaching carousel. The record book covers player records on the career, season, and game level. Every stat category and every record is tracked at the national, conference, and team level. College Football 25 is the first time we've tracked records at a conference level, giving you one more set of milestones to try to break during a career. And Play for Pride stickers. For certain schools like Ohio State and Florida State, the Pride stickers that are applied to an individual player's helmet over the course of the season are as iconic as any other tradition in college football. Each season, the helmet starts fresh, and over the course of the season, based on players' performance, Pride stickers are added. Very cool. To give a visual representation of that player's accomplishments. Very cool. There goes a before and after. We work with each school to understand their fill pattern to make sure that the stickers are being applied over the course of a season, they're being added in the correct pattern based on how the school applies them in real life. Right, like Ohio State does the one side rather than kind of like the back and up. So what else? No Dynasty Deep Dive is complete without going through some of the utility features of the mode. Both online and offline Dynasty can go for up to 30 seasons, so they're not differentiating that. Offline and online, both 30 season cap. Up to 32 users can participate in a dynasty, online or offline, but it said earlier 16 team builder teams. Only one user per school. The commissioner is in charge of determining the settings for the dynasty. The roster file that's used at the league creation handles all custom conference and custom schedule changes and is responsible for advancing the dynasty to the next week or off-season stage. No pressure. Thanks. It's like they're writing that to me. You can keep track of everyone's status in the member's screen. Commissioner status can be transferred from the member's screen as well. Commissioners will have the ability to force a win in the event that the game wasn't completed. And for those of you that like to restart a game versus the computer that's not going your way, the number of times a game was started is tracked on the scores and schedules screen for all to see. Post-game speech. Congratulations if you've made it this far in the blog. Standing at nearly 17,000 words and 85 pages, this blog is a representation of how passionate this team is about the game. The level of dedication, commitment, and passion is what make this team special, and both of us proud to be a part of it. I was only talking about two people. Okay. The entire team has a do-whatever-it-takes mentality because we know how important this game, and more specifically, Dynasty Mode, is to you, the community. Like we said at the top, at the end of the day, everything's centered around one goal: satisfy the core community, because this is their game. Our entire team embraced this and tried our best to embody it each and every day. It's been an incredible journey, and we couldn't be more excited for you to finally experience it. Thank you to the entire team and to the community for your passion, excitement, and support for this game. With that being said, we'll see you again soon for the Road to Glory Deep Dive. Signed, Chad Walker and Ben Howmiller and the entire College Football 25 development team. We did it, chat. 17,000 words, 85 pages, read beginning to end. Oh, I hope it helped somebody that didn't care to read that. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see you on the 15th, man. 15th, 16th. I'm ready. Drop the game. Let's go.